For the CDC, it's more of a case of solving one problem and creating a brand new one. So at the beginning of the pandemic, we weren't sure we were ever going to do this wastewater surveillance. There was this concept that it could work, but we didn't know if it would work. So at the beginning, it was a free-for-all. Every wastewater facility could process the data however they saw fit. And then to mess it up a little bit more, we had different contractors. I forget who the first wastewater contractor was, but when I'm looking it up, it looks like Lumen Ultra Technologies was the first one. And then there was BioBot Analytics, which we loved, and then now there's Verily, which sucks. So over that early time when we didn't really know what we were doing and we were shifting between different contractors, there was a lot of different sample methodologies and collection methodologies and processing methodologies that occurred. And now that wastewater surveillance is established, instead of going back and being like, all right, let's have everything standardized, everyone collects data this way, everyone processes data this way, and we're going to have a unified system, the CDC decided, nah, we're just going to let everyone do it however they're doing it, and we'll clean it up on the back end. But when you have people testing with microbial methods in one way, and then flow rate calculations in another way, and then they use different types of PCR quantification, you get all of this disparate data. And the challenge becomes, well, how do you unify all of this data? Well, the obvious thing would be to make a standardized system starting day one and being like, everyone collects it this way, everyone processes it this way, and this is how the data is reported, and then it's all uniform. The drawback is then you might lose some of the old historic data because you're having people switch over to this new method if they weren't doing it originally, and that's the reason that the CDC chose not to do that, even though it compounds the issue further and further down the line because they're just kicking the can down the road. Because this is something that needs to be done, but they're choosing not to do it. Instead, they came up with this viral activity score, which is a log transform methodology where they check the number of standard deviations away from a baseline level that gets reset every 6 months so that it's constantly changing, and whatever the baseline is, it's getting higher and higher and higher because we know we have higher and higher low levels of COVID in the wastewater every single year, or really at the end of every single wave. The problem that happens is that that costs money. And the facilities are used to doing things one way, and they're not going to want to change how they operate. So instead of doing things the right way and making everything centralized and standardized, they go, I'm going to create this brand new thing, the viral activity level. And as I just showed in the previous video, it's bad. It's not a good measure. And it has a propensity to pull the data down, to make it look like it's lower than it actually is. And if you're trying to minimize COVID from a political sense, then that's a great thing that you want to use. So I think people in politics saw this as an opportunity born out of laziness, born out of something like a problem that they didn't want to solve or couldn't afford to solve. So there's a lot more than just the CDC is not bothering to give the data. It's this huge issue that is becoming more and more complex. It's snowballing as we go further and further into this pandemic.